All right, folks, it's another week in the NFL season. And of course, that means more fantasy football. This week, Joe and I are taking a look at potential DFS lineups that could win you some good money. We put out an episode that was about a team where you're really going after wide receivers. We also built one just recently that I'm really partial to, where we really took after some running backs and we got some potential boom guys there at wide receiver. We're also going to show you a little bit about what happens if you want to go after Mark Andrews. What kind of lineup can you build? So stick with us. We want you to be here with us, and welcome to Local Football Flavor.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team. Yeah, and welcome all our loyal and fun team players out there. Please thank you for clicking like and subscribe and sharing this with your friends. As we said, in today's episode, the goal was to try to make a little bit of money on DSF, show how we go through the process.
DFS.
Sorry, my bad. I say things too fast. You know this. But nonetheless, to try to make some money out there for people, we do the 50-50 leagues, which means you just have to be in the top half, and then you double your money up. And in this particular format, we use FanDuel, where it is half PPR and the rest of the scoring is standard. So with that being said, this episode, as you mentioned, Bob, we are going to start with the top of the tight end world. This is the tight end and quarterback team. So let's start with Andrews. I think it's very clear he should be the number one, and I don't really see a debate about what the next one in his tier even would be.
Yeah, and I honestly think here with Mark Andrews, you have a player that obviously had a down week last week. The game script really didn't feature him very much. I think the Jets kind of took him out of the game a little bit because, I mean, I know their linebackers aren't phenomenal, but I think that was their game plan, and it let Lamar open up the door to other players. 7 points is I mean, if you're looking at what tight ends did, you're really with Mark Andrews, you're getting a guy that could potentially top it off at 30 points. He could go off for 10 receptions, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's done it in the past. He can do it again. If you're thinking about going top tier tight end in a DFS lineup, you're not touching Wall, you're not touching Hill, you're not touching Kittle. You might talk about Pitts, but your best bang for your buck with known potential is Mark Andrews.
Oh, yeah, and there's no debate with that. And along that line, I think that we're going all in. When you spend that much more money on the tight end position than everyone else, I think you have to go all in with it. And that's why I'd argue for Lamar. Let's double down those points and just ride it hard.
Yeah, and like we said about Lamar in an earlier, if you watched our earlier ones about our other lineups, Lamar is an interesting player for the sheer fact that he adds both value as a rusher and as a passer. If he's going to get the ball to anybody, I mean, you see that last week he had 21 points. He got the ball to Devin Duvernay. He got the ball to Rashad Bateman. This game could be really close. It could get out of control. We don't really know because we only watched 1 week last week. But what we can see is that Miami has a pretty decent defense. We also know that Lamar Jackson...
It was against a very inept offense, though.
Yeah. We also know that Lamar Jackson, you know, he is a hot, cold kind of guy, but he has the potential to put up 40 points too. Is that his time this week? You know, it could be, but I mean, if we're thinking about the top potential at a connection here, this gives us a really good connection. I'm also not writing off Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a putrid week last week. He did not get a lot of points, but he still accumulated 22 fantasy points in FanDuel system, even with 5-6 turnovers. If he corrects that could turn out really well for him. But that game, like we said with Joe Mixon, it could get out of control early. And if I'm looking at Tom Brady didn't have a great game last week. What happens there? Kyler Murray, I'm not sold that he's going to have a phenomenal week this week. And I'm really not sold that Matt Stafford or Trey Lance will. So out of this top tier of quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson is your guy. You might want to go with Russell Wilson, but we'll see what happens as we build this lineup.
See, I'm more confident with Lamar than Wilson, just flat out. So, all right, diving into here, do we want to go to quick saving money by going to a defense? Do you want to try to do a high-end defense in
Let's
this
go
lineup?
defense, and I'm picking the Steelers.
Okay, so we're going high-end at quarterback, tight end,
Here-
and defense in this lineup.
Here's the other team that I would take, that I would highly consider as being a very valuable defense this week. Again, is the extra $100 worth it in the lineup? I don't know. But San Francisco. I mean, Denver's defense isn't phenomenal by any means. It's good, but Seattle, they still have two really great wide receivers. But Geno Smith, I would have to see. I mean, there was something that I read, something that I saw that said Geno Smith, when he's like against the spread, is he usually covers the spread.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's like Teddy Two Gloves in that regard.
Yeah, they're an underdog this week, I think, by like 9.5 points. And I feel better about the Steelers. I feel better about getting a potential defensive touchdown against Mac Jones.
Well, I also look at it from this capacity. You can't really judge the Niners defense last week because of the conditions it was in.
No, I'm not.
The Niners overall last year were the best defense with passes under 15 yards and the worst one with over 15 yards. Right. One thing Geno does is he chucks it. And I think that the Niners at the 2-hole for your defense in terms of expensiveness has a much greater variance of failure than the Steelers do. There is no real threat on New England's offense.
Yeah.
Period. And I think that they're going to sack the hell out of them.
I don't think the Steelers will put up 26 points. But
no, you can never bank on a pick 6 or 6 sacks.
But there's a really good chance, even with the injury to TJ Watt, that
they still get 4 sacks.
That Mac Jones turns it over.
Yeah, well, sacks lead to that. So I really do think that there's the very strong likelihood that the Steelers, since they were able to get so much pressure, again, on the most rebuilt line in the league last year in Cincinnati, that they were getting pressure with 4 men, causing all kinds of havoc. I think it happens again. New England's line, I have it the same tier as Cincinnati's. So I think that's pretty comparable with that. But the one thing that New England does not have, it does not have someone to make you fearful at the wide receiver position.
Right.
And
I agree with that.
The Steelers are tremendously good at taking tight ends away from the game. And Smith's their tight end. He is their best receiving option on that field. I think that it could be a very ugly game for New England. And if somehow the Steelers learn how to run the ball, it could be a game where their defense is hardly on the field, because I see it being low scoring. And Tomlin already loves these games where he can run the ball and just own the clock. And for that reason, I see the vast capability of the best way to score fantasy points is to not have your defense on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, the other play here, if we get crunched for money a little bit later, is 4,600 for the Rams. I know I mentioned this in the first, if you watched our first lineup about our wide receiver heavy one. I know you like Atlanta's offense, but Marcus Mariota can make mistakes. There is a potential where your top wide receivers on that team are a rookie and a second-year player. So with a guy like Jalen Ramsey, with Aaron Donald, with Marcus Mariota being a running quarterback basically first, they could cause havoc. They could get a lot of turnovers in that game. I think if we're looking...
Yeah, the Atlanta Rams game comes down to one question at the end of the day. Will game script allow Atlanta to continue to run the ball? Because their defense kept Winston and New Orleans from scoring, so they were able to keep running it. And that's why they had such a time possession advantage. And if the same thing is true with the Rams, I think that game stays close. But if Atlanta is not able to run the ball and it is based upon Mariota's arm, you're looking at a potential Mariota trying to throw themselves back and throws himself away.
If we're looking at, okay, the Steelers' opponent rank, it says here, is 31. So, yeah, you're getting a really low offense here. I mean, New England, I don't know what's going on there. But if we're looking about the potential to score defensive touchdowns, because when you pick a defense in the DFS world, you want the potential to score a touchdown. You don't get it doesn't look like you get a lot of points for wins. It doesn't look like you get a lot of points for accumulated sacks. It doesn't look like you get a lot of points for interceptions accumulated. So who has the better potential to turn those turnovers into points? Your two teams that you're looking at this value amount are probably the Steelers, probably the Rams.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
No, it's not. The Steelers could actually just win this by themselves. When you think about a defense putting up 26, they made a lot of people a lot of money last week.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, do you want to jump into just going through flex and filling out the other 6 positions, or do you want to target one or the other with
Well, let's go to flex.
Okay.
Let's go to flex.
So we're looking at averaging about 6,500 across 6 players. So we do have the ability to touch the low 7s. And we could balance it out with a bunch of 62s if
All right,
that's what
so
you want to
let's take a look. Let's take a look at who's in the 7,000 range here.
So here's your mid 7s right here.
A guy that I'm looking at. I mean, other than James Conner, all of these guys have an up and down potential here.
Well, then let's go a little lower.
It's not.
I like Najee at 72.
I don't. And here's why. If that injury comes back during the game, you could potentially be zeroing yourself out of a position.
That's true. And it is a high ankle sprain, so those have a capability of doing that.
I'm going to go with Zeke here. Just because I don't really think, I don't really want to go with Zeke here, but
well, then we're not. We have all the time in the world.
I think that he's going to get fed the ball, but I don't think that they're going to be up at any one point in that game.
All right. Well, then let's slide it down to here again.
Cortland Sutton could be a guy that you look at for the same reason we looked at Jerry Jeudy sitting at 6,800. He gives you a lot of wiggle room to we could potentially put Jonathan Taylor into this lineup. And see what happens with it.
Let's put Sutton in. And now let's go to just straight running backs.
So you're here at the running back.
If we put Taylor in, we're going to have a lot of bottom end talent.
Well,
but it also would give us the absolute most expensive at 4 different positions.
So we can
be the Rams. We can stars and scrubs.
We could. This could be our stars and scrubs lineup too. It could very well be. But if you want to go down and you want to get a running back here.
Oh no, we're going to have to get 2. So I'm fine with stars and scrubs. Let's put Taylor in and see what happens.
Okay, put him in, and then go down. So
now we got to be looking like at the 5,000 range.
Hold on. I'm not ready to do that yet.
Okay.
Go up. Okay. So you're sitting here. And for the same reason we liked Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt could be another good play this week. Now, like we said about the Jets defense is, their linebackers. Can Chubb get to the second level? Is Chubb going to be targeted as much as he was? What about Kareem Hunt? Kareem Hunt is going to get the ball. He's probably not going to put up 21 points. 7,000 is pretty expensive. I'd think about it.
Yeah, I think that we should be able to find a better value a little bit down the board, though.
I'd also think about how we were saying, if we check, I want to check on DeAndre Swift's injury because Jamal Williams did score 2 touchdowns last week in the red zone.
Yeah, he was the legitimate stealing the thing, and I think that he might be the great play even if Swift is playing because he's a touchdown stealer, and if Swift has any injury, his value increases through the roof. I think there's a high value,
and we could potentially take Jonathan Taylor out of this lineup, put in Jamal Williams and Jeff Wilson. I know it doesn't sound good, but sometimes in DFS lineups, it doesn't have to sound good. It just has to make sense. And like I said, Jeff Wilson has 2.7 yards per carry. Debo is definitely the guy that you want to target there. But when they get down to the red zone, it's Debo. Who knows what George Kittle's doing? Trey Lance, Jeff Wilson, probably in that order. I don't know. He could put up 25 yards and be a complete and absolute waste of time.
I think that's more likely.
I could also think about in a script where potentially, if that Atlanta Rams games isn't close, that Cam Akers at 5,500. Even though we dogged him a lot this past week,
he's not the starter. If we're going to do it, might as well take Henderson.
I get it. At 6,200, we can also take Melvin Gordon if you like him.
I kind of want to see how dirty it looks at 5,400 in the receiver world. See if there's potentially three guys there.
I mean, we can downgrade from Jonathan Taylor, but
I like it. You put Taylor in this lineup, and you know that you have a top tier running back, top tier quarterback, Andrews, and the top defense.
Here's what I'm saying.
There's something that's to that.
Go up. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to put Devontae Adams in this lineup and see what happens.
A receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we are super, super low. So we got to go down to.
Is it even possible?
That's the question. They don't really go below 4,500. So it's so not possible unless we took off the money that Cortland Sutton gave us. Then we can get 3 of these 4,500 guys. But that being said,
all right, let's take a look. Go up.
I mean, we're looking like Ray at 46 at 48. So
keep going. Okay. So all right, hold on, slow down. Okay. So we're looking at a group of guys here that isn't really worth their salt in a lot of different ways.
I like Olave at 5,300.
Olave at 5,300. That could potentially be a good one. Nico Collins could potentially be a good one.
I like that too.
Mike Thomas is a sneaky pick. He dropped the ball in the end zone last week, I believe. But if T. Higgins is hurt, if Tyler Boyd is hurt, I know he was struggling at the end of the game last week. That could be a potential play if you want to have Devontae Adams in your lineup.
Well, I think we're gonna have to drop Adams, but we can get the next
take
4.
Adams out of the lineup. Let's see. Okay, we need 4.
So we're looking at 57 as the range.
All right, let's look
for
here.
4 players here. So
okay, a decent potential.
Go Dotson. We were talking about him in a couple episodes.
Jahan Dotson could be a play here. Go down.
I'm gonna put Dotson in. I think we'll give him a shot.
If you're
we could go Dotson all rookies here.
You might as well put Curtis Samuel in. If you're gonna put Dotson in, you might as well put Curtis Samuel in.
Well, I like Renfro.
You always like Renfro, but the game they didn't really target him at all in that game. But they didn't really have an opportunity to. But Drake London has a bounce back. Have a hard time. Allen Robinson could have a bounce back here.
I would like that at 57. I think that there's a chance that he takes off. He certainly has the upside playing Atlanta, and everyone's going to have to take out Cooper. They're eventually going to need a number 2.
All right, put him in.
I think Robinson at 57 is
go up. There. Get yourself Samuel, like you were talking about, at 57, and let's put Donovan Peoples-Jones at 58.
All right. Now we need another.
All guys that we have talked about.
Yeah. So now let's get our flex, and now we're down here.
You're still sitting at 58. You're still sitting at a group of guys that is really,
Elijah Moore,
really gross. It's really not an optimal lineup you want to build here.
Well, this is because we had to put 4 of them in. It becomes challenging. So
the question is here, folks, is when you go with Lamar and you go with Mark Andrews, who's our top tight end, and you go with this top running back and the top defense from last week, you're getting slim pickings here.
These are the decisions you end up having to make.
I think that Wilson from the Jets is probably a good choice here. The wide receiver from the Jets, the rookie. Sort of just by Jets. I think he was like at 5,700 or something like that. Sort of by Jets.
Overall, the Jets are not an expensive team. So we can either do Garrett Wilson or Moore.
I mean, either one.
Let's see who got more targets last week. So Elijah Moore got 7 targets. 7. And Wilson got 8 targets. I'm all good with going the rookie on that.
So go with the rookie on that. See what that looks like.
And on this note, while I had this open, I want to point this out. Cleveland looks like they had a great rush defense last week, but that was because Carolina chose to give it to them. They only gave the ball
Carolina gave up
to run McCaffrey 12 times. And that's the misnomer of looking at just the rankings sometimes.
I want to posit this then.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Jonathan Taylor for a moment.
To Jonathan Taylor.
Take Jonathan Taylor out of the lineup and put in Breece Hall.
Jonathan Taylor out.
Put in Breece Hall. Breece Hall, I think, was like $5,900.
Okay, now we have a ton of money.
Okay.
And let's upgrade where we want to upgrade.
Could you upgrade? Like we said, Jamal Williams has a really good potential to go off this week.
Mm-hmm.
Could you upgrade Allen Robinson? Do you want to stick with Jonathan Taylor?
If I'm going to upgrade any of them, I'd want to upgrade Peoples-Jones because I believe that game strip gives the least passing potential because Cleveland loves running
Jones out, put in Devontae Adams. And maybe even not Devontae Adams. Maybe you want to go down a little bit on the list so we have more money to upgrade at another position.
They force Tyreek like crazy. And while Tyreek is so healthy, I wouldn't mind. I know he's going to get volume. I know he is that offense.
What was his targets last week?
It probably led the NFL. I was 6 with 12.
Put him in. All right. You're sitting there with $2,300 extra dollars here. If I am worth any salt and I went with a lineup like this,
we have to upgrade the flex. Let's upgrade the flex because it gives us all possibility.
All right. Here's what I'm saying here. You ready?
Mm-hmm. We got 77 now, so we got talent.
Hold on. You're looking at 77. Here's what I want you to rethink. I have 5% battery here. Here's what I want you to rethink. I want you to rethink Allen Robinson.
Okay.
Take him out.
All right, that gives us 2 guys at 67.
Okay. 2 guys at 67. We could potentially get Debo in this lineup at 8,000. You could potentially upgrade if you don't like Breece Hall's potential here because he was in a timeshare with Michael Carter. We can go up on Breece Hall and go to a guy, go to running backs for a moment. I mean, we're still dealing with 3 players here, but we can upgrade at certain positions, downgrade at certain positions, go down a little bit. If you wanted to, you could put in Najee at 7,200.
I do want to because I think he's going to play the whole game.
Knowing that could be a potential boom bust there. Put him in.
All right, so Najee enters our flex.
Okay. You're still dealing at 6.
So I saw this still has Breece Hall in there.
It still has Breece Hall in there. I'm saying you take Breece Hall out, put Najee in it at that position.
Oh, at the running back position. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got 6,000 for the other 2.
You've got 6,000 to spend on
a flex and a receiver.
2 guys potentially here. Now, if I'm looking at this, right, and we're all looking at it, do you want to go with a guy like Christian McCaffrey and just submarine one of your positions?
If we're going to do it, I want to do it with Taylor. Let's just go all in and do this.
Because this lineup isn't awful.
Actually, we have to be still at I think we still have to be at 4,500. We'll see what the lowest position we can get for the flexes.
Okay,
so let's put Henry in or question Taylor in.
Salary.
The lowest player is 4,000 for the flex.
Okay. All right, go
down.
So
therefore,
go down and let's see. How much is OJ Howard? I know he only had 2 targets, 2 touchdowns, and that is an unreliable sample size. But go to tight end and search OJ Howard.
OJ Howard is 5,000.
Okay. Is there anybody in that 5,000 range which will give us the opportunity?
Well, or what we could do is, so AJ Howard's 5,000. We can just go to wide receivers here. Oh, take the Howard thing off. Go to receivers here, and just go down to the 5,000. Well, we can go 6,000 here now. So,
Okay, hold on.
but we have no elite running back. So we could, if you want to go the elite running back game,
Okay,
you
can
kind
we
of have to
try
stop at
something here?
7. That kind of has
Here.
to be your ceiling.
Go down. Can we try something here? Keep going. Stop. Keep going. Okay, I'm positing here Tyler Higbee at 5,300 or Chris Olave at 5,300.
Higbee could be sneaky for some touchdowns there. He did get targets there at the end of the game. Clicking on him here, he had 11 targets. He led the NFL. I'm totally good with throwing Higbee in the flex.
Okay,
so we're that gives us 68 for a receiver. And this is a neighborhood we've played at a little bit here. So this is Metcalf, Sutton. There's some names there.
Now I'm gonna ask you this question. Can you do me a favor and take Lamar Jackson out of this lineup?
Okay.
And put in Russell Wilson.
Sure.
I know you don't like Big Russ.
Well, Big Russ still allows a 7,500 at a receiver. So then
7,500 at a wide receiver.
You can go Hollywood, you can go McLaurin, you can go Waddle.
You can't. What if we take Curtis Samuel down to 5,200? What's 5,200 look like at wide receiver?
5,200 at wide receiver. 5,200 or less, I guess is what you're asking.
Well, no.
Right?
What about Jamal Williams? If we take Jamal Williams down a little bit
at running back.
At running back, because 6,400 is pretty high, even though he did get the touchdowns, and like we said, we do like that. DeAndre Swift, is he playing or not?
We can go to Melgore at 6.
Okay, Melgore at 6. That gives us. I want to get to 8,000.
So we would have to get to 59. Is the goal here.
So we're looking at Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Rex Burkhead, Travis Etienne. We already used Etienne in one of our lineups.
Ricard White might not be that scary of a deal because Fournette's injury. How bad is Fournette's injury?
I don't know. Click on Fournette.
It's questionable with a hamstring. So hammies don't go away.
Given that he handled a huge workload and managed limited practice throughout the week, still the inactive list to be monitored. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on with the Bucs. Should Fournette end up missing the game or his workload scale back, Rashard White would most likely pick up extra snaps, touches. I mean,
I think we play that.
This is a boom bust team here, like we said, because if Najee gets hurt, we're getting no production out of running backs.
But if we go Rashard White, it now opens up so much money for the receiver you're trying to snipe here. So I think that's the play. I think we take.
Okay, I'm going to ask
which
you.
Which one do you want to take out, Najee or Williams?
Can you downgrade the Steelers to the Rams real quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. Downgrade the Steelers to the Rams. We're at 7,900.
That keeps you with Jamal Williams, and you're not worrying about injuries. Yeah. And now that opens up Pittman and CD.
I don't want CD. I don't want Pittman because Pittman's hurt.
Okay. Who are you trying to get to?
I'm trying to get to Devontae Adams.
So we would need 700 more. If we went from Najee to hoping that Fournette doesn't play.
How much was Sutton again?
Sutton. Portland Sutton is 68.
Can you put him in real quick?
Yep.
That gives us 1,000.
Yeah, 1,100.
We could go back up to Lamar Jackson.
I like that.
Okay.
We can also go back up to the Steelers.
Can we?
Yeah. And you're perfect at that
And we're
point.
perfect at 0.
Yeah, so that's kind of the lineup we were shooting for here the whole time. So as I'm looking at this lineup, we got a top flight quarterback in Lamar. We got Najee, who does have some injury risk, and I think that's why he's undervalued. Jamal Williams, who's playing with the Swift potential injury, he gets a ton of workload. Sutton, we're just hoping that he becomes the best friend that has not been identified yet in Denver. Curtis Samuel is its volume slot machine. Tyreek Hill is Miami's offense. There's no way around that. And then we got the 2 most targeted tight ends in the league in terms of last week and last season, and then the best defense. This
Yeah.
is a boomer bust type system, but the fact that we got a lot of target guys in there gives it a relatively high floor. When we first started this pursuit with Lamar Jackson, the Steelers defense, and Mark Andrews in there, I had no aspirations thinking we get a team even close to this. And there's there's a lot of potential for this to have a huge ceiling and relatively limited bust factor. I like this team.
It's definitely a dangerous team. Your only potential parts here that worry me is that running back position where, okay, Jamal Williams may, if Swift's not hurt, he may not get the looks, but he's
Mhm.
definitely a guy in the red zone because they're gonna try to be in the red zone a lot.
It's a
Najee with
touchdown
the
vulture, yeah.
Najee with the Lynch injury here, he could be pulled out of the game and Jalen Warren be put in the game really quickly.
Mhm.
And Tyler Higbee is a guy that could get one target in the red zone and miss it, and you know
The
we're
fact
getting a
that
big
he
fear
led the
out of him.
league, he tied Cooper Kupp for the most targets in the league last week, makes me think that he's going to be relevant.
I think this team, out of all 3 teams, has some potential, but we'll go over all 3 teams and see which one we like the best.